High performers need feedback of positive and constructive. They want to know that they're high performing. They also want to know how to get even further and faster and bigger and better. Those are the people you want.
Welcome to the Great Talent, Great Business Podcast, your go-to resource for building exceptional teams and thriving businesses. Each episode delivers actionable insights on harnessing offshore talent, integrating innovative technology, cultivating a vibrant company culture, and attracting and retaining top performers. Subscribe now to never miss an episode. For more resources, visit greattalentpodcast.com, where you can download this episode's free worksheet designed to help you apply today's insight to your business. And now, here's your host, Rob Levin.
Today, I'm joined by Chason Hecht, the CEO and founder of Retensa, a global leader in employee retention strategies. He has worked with companies across 6 continents to create environments where employees feel valued and engaged. Recognized as a thought leader in talent management, he has been featured in major media outlets and speaks regularly on the topics of workforce retention, employee engagement, and the future of work. Chason's innovative, data-driven approaches are transforming how businesses of all sizes retain top talent and drive sustainable growth. Chason, it's awesome to have you on the podcast.
Oh, it's great to be here. I don't know who that guy is. I hope I can live up to it.
I'm very confident that you're going to do just fine. So appreciate you coming on the show. Let's dive right in here. Help our audience, as you know, it's the owners of small and mid-sized businesses. Help them understand what's the significance and the importance of retention in their business.
Yeah. First, let's define small, mid-size, right? Because that has some spectrum to it. Are we talking about micro business? Because there's really an evolution of an organization where you're going to dial and knob some of those tools and tactics. So if we talk about micro business, let's say 5 to 10 employees, your number one problem really here is customers first. Just get customers. If you're struggling, like if you got 3 or 4 employees and you can't keep them, okay, you have a bigger problem, some fundamentals, right? You might be an a-hole. And if you're finding out you're an a-hole on the Rob Levin podcast, it's okay. You're among recovering a-holes. So you'll be okay.
The safe space, right?
It's safe space, right? But that's like a bigger issue. Typically, the gravity of the owner operator is one that generally tends towards finding a circle of people that you can rely on and trust. So that under 5, that micro business, 5 to 10, it really, if you're building the product and the service and the customers, typically that is first wave. Employee retention, candidly, isn't necessarily top of mind. And I'm okay with that, because if you don't have a viable business, you can't provide an offering. Right? It's okay. So if we're talking about, like, say 10 to maybe 500, 10 to 1,000.
Yeah, which is really our sweet spot. Yeah. Okay,
good. And that's important. And so the other distinction I would want to make here for both of the listeners that we have out there is there's a bell curve in terms of growth. I'm going to speak to, and probably for most of this conversation, to define like the, if I'm 5, 10, maybe 15% growth rate kind of a company, maybe flat, maybe as high as 20%. That sort of flat to 20% is what I can speak to. If you're flailing, if you're struggling to find and keep people, call me. There's like basics that we probably got to work on. If you're hypergrowth, if you're like at 25, 50, 100% growth, then you're not going to take this tactic. If you ask me to drive and you point to a Formula One car versus a Hyundai, those are very different tactics. So put the Formula One aside, bell curve in the middle. Fundamentals in here is about hiring right at probably the 10 to 50 range. I'm 10 to 50 employees. If they're in that listening audience, it is really about nailing down who fits in this organization, who aligns with this vision, who is going to provide maybe a couple hats, right? I don't need specialists. I need jacks of all trades, because there's so many things that need to be done. And hiring, figuring out who you are, what you offer, and who wants that. This is like critical success.
Who wants that on the employee side?
On the employee side.
Yeah,
absolutely. I give you the benefit of the doubt, watcher, that you've made it. You've got a viable product. You've got a viable service. Again, if you've hit 7, 8, 9 employees, then you're doing something right.
Right.
I mean, the giant pyramid, Rob, of like how many people don't even get there.
Right. And this is not the great marketing podcast. Sorry, continue. I cut you off. We're at the 10 to 50 moderate growth organization, retention. And you started to talk about a lot. What I'm hearing is understanding what your culture is, right? And getting people who are going to fit in with that culture.
right, as the owner operator, is the founder, sort of leader in that organization, much of that is driven by that individual, whomever they are, strengths and weaknesses. And it emulates and sort of waterfalls outside of that. So knowing that and knowing this is your offering, find people that want that. Retention, lots of different definitions of that. But I can tell you in its simplest way, it's finding people that you want who want what you got, and then give it to them like full speed. Give them everything you got. That's employee retention in its simplest way. If you're not finding people that you want, and or you're hiring, somehow have built a mechanism to get people in who don't want or like what you've got to give, it's never going to line up. You're never going to hit on all cylinders. And what happens is you cannot get to 50, 100, and 200 at that point. If you haven't figured out some of those workforce issues, the curve is just so much steeper because talent is more expensive. Truly, 10, 20 years ago, when we're talking about $7, $8 an hour, when we're talking about cogs and wheels, it's just highly specialized. There's no business where you don't need someone who has problem-solving skills. Is that helpful?
100%. Now, let's just talk for a second about the faster growth business. What's different on the retention side, the importance of retention in that business?
Okay, so what's happening here is your ability to avert mistakes in that path, right? If I'm a 0.001 degrees off when my rocket takes off for the moon, I end up in Jupiter. So at speed, at velocity, and at trajectory, minor mistakes bite you in the ass. And so if I'm on that hyper growth curve and trajectory, I need to be more attuned to these interconnections between people versus just getting somebody in space. Just consider, in some ways, your constellation of asteroids sort of around a planet. And let's say we're talking about planet Levin. It's a lush, it's a rich planet, wet, some would call it, right for life. And these asteroids, these moons, these rocks, sort of we bring into the orbit around planet Levin. And what we're doing is making sure that they're not crashing into each other and bumping up, but that they're forming a harmony in concert, working with each other in the right direction. And what happens is actually over time, when you get the people moving in the right direction, you form these beautiful rings, the rings of planet Levin. And it's gorgeous and it's beautiful. And then just imagine planet company Chason. It's rocky, it's dirty. It's a dirty planet, Rob. And it's rough. And what's happening is you've got people in that constellation around that planet, and the rocks hit each other and they shoot off. Now, in order to replace that person, I've just spent time and money. I have just wasted resources.
While you're growing very quickly and you're focused on so many different things. Is it safe to come to the conclusion that the faster the growth, the more important retention?
Oh, 100%.
And retention will affect your ability to stay on track, is what you're saying. Now I have a follow-up question, which is, whether you're fast growing or not, isn't some attrition good? Is all retention good, or is there some retention that's not so good?
So almost all unwanted attrition is bad. And I think that's a distinction also for the audience to know that, yeah, by most accounts, I'm probably the world's leading retention expert right here. And I can tell you, absolutely, not all turnover is bad. You have to know who is leaving and the value they provided to the organization. So distinguishing regrettable versus non-regrettable, wanted versus unwanted turnover.
And there's something that you said maybe a minute or two ago that's so, to me, it's so important, which is really understanding that personality type, if you will, that fits into the organization. So we're talking about retention, but really this all starts in the hiring process as well.
Absolutely. For that SMB, you do not have a retention problem typically. You have a hiring problem. People want to be productive and fruitful. The people you want at an organization, they want to work. And if you can calibrate to your culture, a phrase that we use all the time, I don't think I could underscore that enough, certainly in this conversation and anywhere else. But knowing who wants what you got, who's going to succeed, who's going to prosper, who can do what you needed them to do when you're not looking. You talk about culture. What is culture? How do you define culture, Rob? What is that culture that you want your organization to be? Is that the culture that you have? I would say not always.
Yeah, I can speak firsthand about this because in previous companies, when you and I met 20 years ago or so, I had the New York Enterprise Report, and you actually knew a lot of my team. We had a pretty good staff, but the culture was not by design. And this time around,
Yeah.
with my partner, with Andrew, we were really, really deliberate about the culture that we wanted to have. We came up with these core values, not on day one, by the way. Well, one on day one, and the
Yeah.
rest later. And we were very particular about hiring in accordance with those core values.
Yeah.
And if there's not a fit with those core values, then it's just not a fit and it's not going to work. And we help somebody find a better place for them.
And you can see the difference.
Uh,
100%.
10,000%.
1,000%.
We've talked about the importance of retention. What are some of the more common challenges in small and mid-sized business? And let's focus more on the non-micro, right? For the rest of the conversation. What are some of the more challenges, and how can small and mid-sized businesses address those challenges?
So as you ramp up, as you speed up, you've got this mass. And what happens is things become a cost of doing business. Right? I think one of the biggest mistakes and concerns that sort of we discover is that a business doesn't know the cost of employee turnover. They haven't calculated that. They've calculated customer acquisition. They've calculated average recurring revenue, product margins. Okay, what's your cost of turnover? How is that not in? And I'm working hard to make sure that that is in the pantheon of business metrics. The cost of employee turnover is staggeringly more than most people think it is. And we have tremendous amount of data now over 20 years. We've probably done more cost of turnover analysis than anyone in the world. By the way, there's a free calculator. So anyone can do this on retensa.com. You can go there, cost of turnover. It takes about 9 minutes and you can determine, okay, this is what it's really costing me. And knowing that cost total, like per year, tells me how much I should spend to reduce it. Nobody writes a check to turnover. Right? That would be nice. Here's my expense sheet for no.
It just shortens lifespan.
Right. It just costs you everything else.
Right.
You write the check to the job postings, to LinkedIn, to the background check companies, to the manager who's got to retrain and rehire. You're paying that bill, right?
And the mess ups to the customer. We can go on and on and on.
Total. There's dozens of those that are very real, and not knowing that cost means that you're kind of flying the plane with this like massive hole in it. You don't know that you're like how much more fuel it takes to run because that's broken. So that's one, just capturing the cost. I think the other thing for small, mid-sized business is trying to be a big business. Definitely see that 50, that 100, 200 person company, and they're attempting to be the 5,000 person company. And that hiccup of bringing in maybe benefits or tactics or even people who are like, oh, we're going to play with the big boys. So I'm going to bring someone in from a Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 company. I rarely see that work. I mean, half of your friends are business owners.
No, only when you're getting considerably bigger. Some of the people that we know that really have, crushed it where they're well into the 9 figures in revenue, because it's a different skill set.
I understand that desire for the business owner who's made it to 100 employees. You're already in the 2%.
Yeah.
Like props, 150, 250 employees. And the idea that maybe you've got a blockbuster to get there, that is one of those asteroids that you're trying to corral. You're trying to bring into Planet Levin, and then it's going to slam up and just plow through those people, the dozen that got you here. That's a dangerous mistake to make and can really derail.
Yeah. Really. How can companies mitigate that and other challenges that they typically face when it comes to retaining the people that they want to retain?
So it absolutely starts with knowing, why do people join? Why do employees stay? And why do employees quit your organization? You've got to know with clarity and confidence the answer to those 3 questions. Everything else is guessing.
So that leads me to my next question, because I think they're going to tie in together. I could be wrong here. Yeah. Retensa is very well known for taking a data-driven approach. Imagine that, to predicting and preventing employee turnover. Is that where you start to get a sense of, because what you just talked about were subjective, it seems like subjective factors, like why are people coming, why are they staying? But put that together, put those reasons, those drivers, and put those together with data. And what does that look like?
You can't do it alone. You need software for that. I mean, period, right? And that's fine, because there's plenty of software out there that can do that. We have obviously have a platform that we think captures it faster and easier. But fundamentally, it is about creating a feedback loop with your workforce that is frequent, organic, and accessible. Meet them in their medium. If you've got under 30-year-olds, you should be texting this. Okay, we've got clients in Latin America. It's WhatsApp that we're using. If you're an accounting firm in San Francisco, email's fine, right? We have an envelope factory client. Okay. Yeah. Paper. You're still on paper. That's fine. Meet them in their medium so that it's seamless to the experience and asking questions and creating that feedback loop.
Give us just so we can picture this, give us a couple of examples of some of the questions.
Sure. So if you're in this join stage with the new hire, a question might be, are you prepared for success? I'm sorry, that's a stay question. So for the join question, it would be, what do you want out of this experience? What are 3 goals that you want to have in your life by working here in the next 6 months? We ask that question, Retensa, of every single person from intern to director of marketing that we have ever hired. We ask, what do you want in your life in 6 months that you can get through working here? And now I'm aligning life and work because for most modern humans, we are what we do. Right?
Yeah.
That's an expression of ourselves. Yeah. And so knowing that and aligning with that and putting the company at, okay, how can I support them? And actually committing to support them. So what do you want in your life? That's it. Another sort of join question, why they joined, is why would you quit? Like right now, what would derail this experience for you? Let me know now. Don't make me guess. Guessing is expensive. Tell me now, what's the third rail that's going to set you off?
Sort of like pet peeves in a way.
Sure.
You're getting this. Are you looking at the aggregate results or are you looking at the individual results?
So depending on your size, the individual results can be a flag. Part of us collecting all the data, millions and millions of data points, is that we can get predictive. We can predict who will join, stay, and quit with 90% accuracy. There's free tools like this. You can go to exitpro.com. Anybody who's here, you can get free exit interviews. You can get free new hire surveys to start. And when you put it all together, Rob, you have a clear picture of women in Chicago in sales, Generation Z in accounting in Florida. Yeah, no, we know. And when you know the demographics around an individual and the motivational drivers through these questions and unearthing them, then you can determine, and it doesn't happen on Monday, it does happen and it gets real when you start connecting those dots across the employee life cycle. That's what's really important. There's 2 dots form a line. Okay, and a line is good, right? But a third dot is a curve. I know the direction I'm going, which is join, stay, and leave around that employee life cycle. Leave is the exit interview. Stay would be commonly like a climate survey, engagement survey, people call it, or a stay interview. And new hire, I could do applicant surveys. I could do new hire surveys, et cetera. Those are the anchors in my feedback triad.
That's amazing. My mind's racing here. And of course, the fact that I've known you for so long, I've heard a lot of this before, but it's just always mind-blowing to me and so powerful. This episode is brought to you by Work Better Now, your trusted partner for getting high-performing talent from Latin America. Our clients tell us that partnering with Work Better Now has transformed their businesses by providing the proactive, reliable, and skilled professionals that they need to thrive. Ready to build your dream team? Visit workbetternow.com to schedule your consultation today. As a special thank you to listeners of the Great Talent, Great Business podcast, we're offering $150 off your first 3 months. Just mention Great Talent during your consult. Join the businesses building their dream teams and take the next step in transforming yours today. Our clients have at least one remote person on their team. There are companies like us, we have 45 people all remote over a couple of continents. How does remote affect retention? And what do companies need to be thinking about here?
There's a lot of evidence now in data, especially in the last 5 years, as the shift towards remote has occurred. And there are a few gaps that are now well documented. And so the on-site staff feels more connected to on-site staff, and remote staff tends to feel more connected to remote staff. And there's a giant chasm between the two. So if you're a hybrid organization and you've got some combination of people working offsite and remote, it becomes more imperative to get people in one place at the same time. So that's shifting budgets and shifting investments to travel costs, shifting to events where people can be more team building opportunities or workshops, internal workshops and strategy planning that is highly interactive and engaging. That's really critical. What we also know is that when you make people go to work 5 days a week, and you've seen the headlines, I'm sure some companies here are thinking about, well, maybe we should go back to 5 days a week. Here's what we know.
You mean 5 days a week in the office?
In the office. So permanent staff, all in one place at one time. What we've now seen happen is that the phenomena called coffee badging starts to emerge. I don't know if you've heard this.
I have not.
Hear about this. Okay, so let me tell you, this is very real, and it's a version of this is going to happen at any organization where culturally you've created this embrace for remote, and now you force every people in one place. So coffee badging is swiping your badge at the desk downstairs at the lobby, getting your cup of coffee, walking around the office, making sure everyone sees you, and then walking out. Now you've just blown how much commute time on either side. You've gone home to actually do your work, but you showed up to make sure that you were seen. Massively unproductive. It's a huge problem in larger organizations, but it's even happening really in mid-markets where they're trying to push that 5-day work week. So there are real serious side effects to forcing people who are remote going on site. Keep that flexible. You've retained that population. What we also know is that only 76 to 80% of a given work week is doing work. So let's talk, like, you got a 40-hour work week. Actually, we all know not 100%. You're not getting 40 hours out of anybody. You're only getting 35, 36 hours. This is universal. This does not have elasticity at company size. What happens is when you're a remote worker, what the data indicates is that what you're doing in that spare time is walking the dog, going to the gym, managing your life. You're actually increasing balance with your work and life experience. You're getting things done that serve and fulfill you in other ways. When you are at work, it's the same 35 hours, Rob. Nobody's working 40 hours on site, but the 5 other hours is spent socializing with coworkers. Now, this is not a bad thing. I'm saying it's a different phenomenon, which is I'm building camaraderie and collaboration and connectedness with my coworkers here. That's a good thing. I'm not working, but I'm not building that. I'm not necessarily better managing my life. So work-life balance is more of a struggle of on-site workers because I'm losing commute time back and forth, and I'm not doing the things to serve my life.
So what's your message to employers, again, small and mid-sized businesses, whether they're hybrid or one way or another, they have some remote people, about this phenomenon? And I'm also curious if you're seeing this around the globe or if it's more of a US thing. But what's your message to them? Is this okay? Is this not okay? And let me stop there because I have a follow-up question to that.
In terms of what's okay, the gap in work time, you're not going to stop it. Look, gravity works whether you agree with it or not.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, Newton took care of that, right?
Yeah, he signed, check. So I could tell my face that I'm in my 20s, but I don't think it listened. So it's going to happen. It's a measure of, or it's a consideration for, as an organization, what's more valuable to you, what aligns better with your culture. Both are going to occur. If they're remote, they're not going to work full time. They're going to create work-life balance. If work-life balance is what you want your employees to exhibit, to experience, if that's an important part of the life you want to give, then let them be remote. Again, you got to measure input. You got to measure outputs. If you don't have basic outputs,
KPIs, right?
Okay, I'm taking for granted that, again, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
That's in place. You can establish that and determine high performers versus low performers, right? Baseline, another podcast. Let's have that conversation. But if if connectedness, innovation, collaboration is important to me, get them on site. There's no substitute for innovation than being in the same room with the same people at the same time. If that's important to your culture, okay, get them and hire people who want to innovate, who are creatives. They're going to be more fulfilled and satisfied, excited being in a room with other creatives.
What I'm taking out of this is, look, you can't stop progress, if you will, right? I've been saying for a while, like this work-life balance shift, it didn't just happen since the pandemic. This has been happening for over 100 years.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if you accept this, which is give your people a little bit of flexibility because it's going to happen anyway, this
Yeah,
can actually be an amazing retention tool.
absolutely. I would say let's move from acceptance to embrace. Let's play that card,
Yeah.
right? You talk about challenge, play that card as, hey, this is a place where you can have work-life balance. You're going to work hard. We're going to push it at times, but you know what? If you want to walk your dog at 2 o'clock, walk your dog. Right. You want to go to the gym? I have staff that come to meetings sweating because they just went to the gym. Oh, good for you. That's fantastic.
Right.
You needed that.
Right.
You're definitely going to be better in your endorphins, in your sense of completeness and balance. That's a card, man. Play that card because that's what you got.
Yeah.
Lean
I,
into
I
it.
tell my staff, you got to run out. Go just run out. Just let people know that you're out so that they're not looking for you. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We instituted something, and I think that this probably on the minds of a lot of listeners, viewers, is like low cost, no cost stuff. How do I do some of this and sort of embrace that? A lot of people know Summer Fridays, right? And that's pretty low cost. We kind of see there's very little impact to give people a few extra hours on Fridays. And if you don't have a business where someone has to be in the
Yeah.
store at that time, right?
Like
You
a
can do that.
hospital. Right.
Like, yes, if you're running a hospital right now, please don't send people home. We instituted Winter Mondays. So Sunday blues, man, yeah, people get it. Sure. And I love what I do. I love my company. I love everyone I work with. It's phenomenal. You know what? I like Sunday night doing something else. I like doing other things too. Winter Mondays is that for the first 3 hours on a Monday, you don't book a meeting with that person. For 3 months out of the year, when we don't have the sunshine and the sunlight, we actually biorhythmically take longer to get up to speed. Don't book a meeting with anyone at 9:30 or 10 a.m. on a Monday. Let them acclimate
Especially in
during
the
those
winter
times.
because of the circadian rhythm. Yeah.
Exactly.
Chason, any last suggestions in terms of, and I want to stick to remote here because often things that work in remote will actually work for in office too. Any last minute suggestions? Doesn't have to be low cost even, but what else can companies do to retain their top talent?
A key element for high performers in particular, top talent, and I really want to define, because this is part of the theme that's important. You don't retain everyone. Low performers, let's put them aside. But high performers need feedback of positive and constructive. They want to know that they're high performing. They also want to know how to get even further and faster and bigger and better. Those are the people you want. And oftentimes we are, as managers, leaders, we are distracted by the middle and sometimes the lower end of that workforce. All right, I'm trying to make them better. I'm trying to make them better.
You're speaking my language because there's this thought like, I got to spend more time with the people who are not performing. Whereas if you spend more time with the people who are killing it, you're going to get an outsized return on that time.
Right. And it is natural and it is common. And that's the force that low performers have a gravity of their own. Again, that asteroid, you all of a sudden have a moon that is pulling at resources towards it, not the planet Levin that you should be all circling around, the vision, the product, the service, this goal, this transformation that this organization wants. Instead, everyone's dealing with Kevin and his, crazy. So high performer, absolutely positive and constructive feedback. Give them care and feeding. If you're watching this podcast, find the top 3 high performing people in your organization right now, write them down and tell them, write down next to it what you can thank them for, and then make that phone call, make that email. If they prefer text, then meet them in their medium, give it to them in the medium that they value. 3 people, what did that cost you? 20 minutes, maybe?
And yeah, ginormous return.
Ginormous.
Chason, I feel like, as usual, we can keep going on and on and on. Where can people find out more about you and Retensa?
Absolutely go to a couple of websites to get tools, tactics, and tips. Retensa.com. You can also find, we talked a lot about the employee life cycle. Just knowing that there is an employee life cycle, go there. Exapro.com is a place you can go for free employee exit interviews, new hires, 360s. You could sign up. Talent Pulse. Talent Pulse is software that you can get free trials to get feedback from a workforce that you're up and live in 4 minutes or less. Again, if any of this is a black hole, if there's any blind spots in your life, in the employee life cycle, if you don't know like why people are joining, staying, leaving, then tackle that. You can sign up in minutes and be live and capture those insights and transform that data into decisions.
That's so awesome. Chason, thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing these awesome interplanetary insights.
Absolutely. Always a joy. I went all out, and I feel that anyone who's listening has gotten their money's worth.
And for everybody listening that wants more of Chason, I'll be starting a comedy show that Chason will be my first guest.
I love it. I love it. Be well, brother.
Thanks a lot.
You.
Thanks a lot, Chason. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks for listening. The Great Talent, Great Business podcast is brought to you by Work Better Now. Don't forget to review, subscribe, and download the worksheet for this episode at the link below. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on LinkedIn at Great Talent, Great Business, or visit greattalentpodcast.com.